Um, yeah, whenever we're ready.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for spending your noon hour with us. This is a meeting with the Mayview residents. So if you're on the call, what we will be speaking about is specific to our Mayview residents. So if it's not applicable to you, you may have joined the wrong call. We do ask if you put your name in the chat, if you can find the chat at the bottom of your screen or wherever it is on your screen, and just let us know your name so we know who's in attendance. And I'll go ahead and let the Raleigh Housing Authority staff introduce themselves. I am Sonia Anderson. I'm the Director of Housing Operations. The Housing Operations Department here at Raleigh Housing Authority is responsible for our maintenance, our landscaping, the waiting list for public housing, and your property manager, Ms. Kiara, she works in my department as well. Mr. Clayton, who does the repairs. So that's what we do here in housing operations. I'll go ahead and let another staff member introduce themselves until we've all had the opportunity. So Rachel, you want to go next? You're next on my
Sure.
screen.
Okay. My name is Rachel Gimbiade. I work in the real estate development department over at RHA. I'm a housing development project manager, and our department is responsible for all of the redevelopment activity that is occurring right now, as well as going through with this RAD conversion process. And I will pass it off to Laura. I think she's
Okay,
still, oh,
sorry.
there you
Technical
go.
difficulties. My cursor got stuck on a different screen. So my name is Laura McCann. I am the Director of Resident Services. I have a few teams under me, one of which is our relocation team. We have Miss Janine Hill on the call. She is our relocation manager. And then we also have the resident services coordinators under resident services. That would be Miss Suzanne Sands for the Mayview property. So if you are aware of Miss Suzanne or Miss Alexis at our senior buildings, they are part of my team as well. And I will pass the meeting on over to Heather.
All right. Hi, I'm Heather. I'm the communications manager for Raleigh Housing Authority. You'll probably see emails from me, maybe some fun flyers, and I'll be running this PowerPoint today. So very excited to be working with everyone.
All right, great. Thank you. All right, so we'll move on in our presentation. Today we do have a specific agenda that we'll be speaking from. So if you have a concern that's very personal or maybe related to your apartment, we do ask that you continue to contact your property manager, Ms. Kiara, about that. I also want to make a point that if you have a neighbor that's not here today, or you know that they may speak another language, they may have a disability, may have difficulty accessing data online. If you could share with them the contact information that we're going to give you at the end of our presentation. And we want to make sure that everyone gets our message. We actually want you to be tired of seeing us. So we have some very important information, and we want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to hear it, ask questions. So we'll move on to the next screen. And again, we say welcome. We know it's noon, and I'm glad you're here with us. The meeting won't take long, but I also don't want you to feel rushed either because you will have opportunities to ask questions about the information we're going to share today. We're going to do a recap from previous meetings. We're going to talk about the CHAP approval. CHAPS is an acronym, and we do have an approval, and that is from HUD. So if you've came to meetings before, you understand that we had to do an application with HUD for this process. We've got some future plans that we can share with you. Still nothing definitive, but there are some more information that we'll share. We're going to talk about what's the next steps. You'll hear my coworker, Miss Laura, tell you that you don't have to move right now, but moving is a possibility in the future. And as your housing operations director, it's important for me when you get off the calls today that you understand what your resident rights are. And also, like we said, we're going to talk about voluntary relocation and when about that could begin. So we'll move on to our next screen. And at previous meetings, if you attended, you understood that I tried to tell you the why. Why is Raleigh Housing Authority considering a RAD Section 18 redevelopment? So as your housing operations director, I discussed how maintenance is part of my department and the difficulties we have in maintaining properties for large scale improvements. So I am fully aware, as you are, that the property you live at, Mayview, is an aging property. It's been there for quite some time. It does satisfy our needs, and you have a safe place to live. However, if we wanted to do major renovations, we simply don't have our funding because our funding comes from HUD. It's a federal department, and we get our funding from them. I want you to visualize two buckets. In one bucket, I am funded for public housing. Public housing is what Mayview is. Mayview is an example of what we own and we manage, and you get the benefit of rent based on your household's income. So that's an amazing program that we have funded. And with that funding, I also get a separate bucket of money that we would do capital improvements on. Capital improvements are not maintenance that you see every day when Mr. Clayton comes in, but something major. Let's say we wanted to improve the plumbing or the electrical or the roofs or the siding or the bricks, something major. And those are called capital improvements. And we just don't have sufficient funding for that. And we talked about that in other meetings. The other concern I have as a department is my waiting list. My waiting list is very long. I have a lot of families that are waiting for the same benefit you have of rent based on income. And I also have a waiting list of transfers, transfers where families could be waiting for something handicap accessible, a different size because their family has grown or either decreased. And I simply just don't have enough units, and my families are waiting quite a long time. So that is sort of the why. And so we understood under HUD when they realized also that they weren't funding us properly across the nation, it's not just a local problem, there was some options for us to consider. And so you see option 1, 2, and 3 on the screen. Option 1 was obviously we could continue business as usual and hope for the best, understanding that we do have inadequate funding, but that's not the way Raleigh Housing Authority has operated. And so option number 2 is a conversion with RAD Section 18. And we chose, and after speaking with residents and getting feedback, we did choose the option number 3. And so that's where we are today. So I'm going to now turn over the meeting to Miss Rachel. She is with our real estate development department, and they are the ones that did the application, and they are the ones that are working on some future plans. So with that, I'll turn it over to Rachel.
Thank you, Sonia. So as Sonia stated, we went ahead and we submitted the application to HUD for our RAD conversion, and we received approval from HUD, and we received our CHAP, which is another HUD acronym for commitment to enter into a housing assistance payment contract. It's very long, so we always use CHAP. And so with that, that allows us to now start to develop a plan for Mayview. Like we had stated previously, we are in the very early stages of this. So this gives us the go ahead to go and start creating this plan in conjunction with residents, the community, and other stakeholders. And so this is a RAD conversion to Section 8. So like Sonia was stating, the Section 8 program is well funded. So we are moving towards that direction. In the early stages, there's not a lot of movement that you'll see, but we are gonna, again, we'll have continued update meetings. We'll be starting to look at kind of what the scope is for Mayview, but construction will not start immediately. Nobody should be going out there swinging hammers, and just know that we have several steps that we have to take before we even get to that point. And we'll make sure to keep all residents, updated and let them know, what's going on. And so, next slide. So, like I said, no definitive plan. We do have 2 replacement housing options for the residents of Mayview. So, one option is to go ahead and build new units off-site on RHA-owned land. And that would be, again, new construction, brand new units, comparable units to what comparable units and comparable neighborhood. And what that means is that we aren't going to go and, find a piece of land far, far away in the outskirts of Raleigh. It's going to be something comparable to what you're used to here, but it would be new modern units. And then the other option is to go ahead and buy a newer property that is again still comparable. We have not made any decisions. This is very early in the process, but we know we have options. Our intent is to go ahead and make sure we are replacing all 60 units. Again, new modern units. But our goal at RHA is not just to replace the minimum 60 units, it's to actually create more affordable housing because, as Sonia had stated, she has an extensive wait list and we know that it is needed here. So when we look at this plan for Mayview, we want to make sure that we are able to provide more affordable units. And this is the timeline. You may have seen this in our previous presentations. Unfortunately, the red ticker has not moved super far, but we are making baby steps towards this process and getting to our end goal. Right now, we are right at the 2 resident meetings part of this. We just received our CHAP. We still have several steps to get to that end after our closing. And so again, we'll have another set of meetings and we'll continue to keep you all updated. Something I really, really want to make sure you to note on here. So required relocation wouldn't even begin until prior to mid 2027. So you're looking at a long time before we would even consider required relocation. Today's meeting, we will talk about voluntary relocation, but as it stands right now, nothing is being mandated, nothing's being and done with that section of it. So again, we have a long time before that even happens. We're still in the early phase of this, and we will continue to keep residents updated on what's happening. And with that, I will pass it over to Laura.
Thank you. I am not sure what is going on with my mouse today, but thank you. All right, so I am here to talk about resident rights. In my opinion, the whole reason we're doing this is because we want to keep our residents affordably housed and expand our programs. So it's very important that you all know your resident rights. Residents are at the heart of what we're doing here. One of those notices is that RHA will provide ample notice of any renovations or redevelopments. Just like we said earlier, we would rather over communicate than under communicate. We'd rather get on your nerves and you say, oh my gosh, there's another email from the Housing Authority, but still have access to the information, than to feel like we didn't communicate with you and you weren't given the opportunity to participate and give us your feedback. We will be holding multiple resident meetings. That is another right. You have the right to tell us what you think of this project, what your suggestions are. You all here are the ones with the lived experience, and we are really looking for that feedback so that whatever plans are made are inclusive to our families and are reflective of what your needs and desires are while you're here with us at Raleigh Housing Authority. The choice mobility option, now that's kind of a cool option that, let's say we get all the way through this process, would be afforded to you when we look at transitioning to Section 8. It is not something that HUD allows in the public housing program, so it is not something you can do currently, but it would be a benefit of us getting through this process. And when I say choice mobility, what I mean is that, let's say we get through this process and you have signed a lease for a tenant-based voucher. 12 months after that process, you could come to the Housing Authority and say, hey, I've appreciated my time, but I really like a voucher that I can take with me and get out of your properties and go somewhere else. Whether that's a different landlord in the same area, whether that's a different area entirely. You can take a housing choice voucher and have any landlord within the United States. So that could be any 50 states, Puerto Rico, any of those territories that are willing to accept that voucher. That would allow you to take that affordable rent and take it with you. So that's really cool. There are some conditions that you would have to go through the eligibility process for that. The Housing Authority has to be issuing vouchers at that time. So if we weren't issuing vouchers, we may have a wait list internally. So there are some considerations to think about when we're talking about choice mobility, but that is an option. And so that's kind of cool. But everything we're talking about here today would have your resident rents still based on your income. So whether it's public housing or Section 8, we still follow HUD formulas and calculations to come up with a rent amount for each household individually. So as you know, if your income goes up, your rent goes up. If you have a loss of income, your rent goes down. We're still talking about following an affordable calculation formula based on HUD's guidance. Next slide. So another right is that RHA is going to assist with moving expenses. We're going to help you with more than just moving expenses, but we are assuring you that we will help with moving expenses. So that can look a few different ways. That could look like you saying, hey, Housing Authority, I've spent $2,000 on the costs of moving to my new house. Here are the receipts. And I would like you to make me whole for everything that came out of pocket for this move. And we can look at doing that. That could look at like you saying, well, I'm just going to take the generic flat fee for whatever your bedroom size is, a 2-bedroom, a 3-bedroom, a 4-bedroom. I don't really feel like keeping up with my receipts. That's more work and hassle, and I just am not interested in that. Please just give me the generic rate. So, there are a few different options of how that can look. And what we are going to do is we're going to wait for each household to tell us what option works best for you. We're not going to assume what works for your household, but we'll let you drive that conversation and how you would like to be reimbursed. Now, there are some non-dollar signs that are also attached with moving, and that is going to be ways that we're going to help you out with that from our relocation team. Making connections with landlords, looking at utility considerations, helping you get connected with other services in the area that may be able to help your household, giving you a list of moving companies that other tenants who have gone through this process ahead of you have had success in using and seem to have affordable rates to our households. Things like that, there's no dollar sign attached to that, but we consider that important and ways to make this move as easy as possible for you. So we are going to help you with those as well. All tenants that are in good standing when you come out of your unit, you will have the right to return after a temporary relocation. When I say in good standing, what I mean is that you are complying with your lease, you're paying your rent. If there is anything that is a leasing concern for you, please contact your property manager, Ms. Kiara. Those issues are completely separate from anything we're discussing here as far as redevelopment and renovations. So please make sure you address that with her so that you can get in good standing if you have a question about whether you are or not, or if there is something that is impacting your ability to be in good standing. Please go ahead and reach out to her ahead of time, because that will make this process easier for you when it is, a year or so from now and we're looking at this process specific to Mayview. You will have the right to a resident organization, resident councils. So we elect those every other year. And Mayview does not currently have a resident council president, although if you would like to be in that position, we would be happy to look at appointing you for the rest of this remainder term. And we are also going to be holding that election process in future terms in future years. That will not go away because of this conversion. You have the right to address grievances and disputes and actions with us. When I say that, what I mean is, did we do something? Did we not do something? Do you want to talk about it? What happened? Are we on different pages? How do we take a look at that objectively and see how can we move forward together? What needs to be addressed in order to get this situation where hopefully both parties are in agreement and happy and moving forward. But you have the right to come to us and let us know, hey, this is what happened, and I'd like to take the time and talk with somebody about that. Next slide. So like I said, we have a dedicated relocation team under Miss Janine Hill's oversight, and they are a team just to work with families that are coming out of RHA properties because of redevelopment. We have worked at Heritage Park. We are currently working in multiple other communities, Glenwood Towers and Kentwood. We are currently set up there. And at some point, we do intend to come to Mayview. We are not there yet, because again, we are at the very beginning stages of this process. So you won't expect to see us on site regularly, but you can always reach out to us in the meantime. We have phone numbers up here on the screen. You can call us at those times. We will be happy to help answer questions, and we will work with you. We're not necessarily moving anybody yet, but we can maybe provide some guidance on what the process looks like for other sites. Just keep in mind that every site is slightly different. Next slide. So with relocation, there are a couple different options. One is when people will be moving. So the option to move earlier rather than later, that's what we call voluntary relocation. That essentially means that Raleigh Housing Authority has not come and said, hey, Mayview, you have 90 days before we need you to relocate, but we're going to open that process up prior to that if anybody wants to leave early. You don't have to at that point, but we will have those conversations with you so we can help gauge your interest in that process. For instance, at other sites where we have worked at, we open this process specifically before the summer months, just for families who may have children in school and who don't want to take their kids out during the term. That is a hardship they were looking to avoid. So we open that process up earlier to accommodate that. At some point, though, we will come to you and we will say, it is the time where we need to empty this property so that we can proceed with the plans that have been created. So that is what we call mandatory relocation. And at that point, we will give you at least 90 days notice. We may give you more than that, but that is the absolute minimum is 90 days. And we will talk with you about what your options are, assuming you have decided to stay with Mayview as long as you can, which is absolutely fine. And that is your right to do that. The only thing I will point out is that this is for people who are in a safe unit. If we have anybody who is experiencing something like a health and safety issue, an urgent maintenance issue, or some other concern, let's say we have a hurricane and a tree lands on your roof and your roof caves in, we have an obligation at the Housing Authority to keep you in a safe and sanitary home. So if there is some sort of really emergent situation, we may ask you to leave ahead of these options. But that will be determined on a case-by-case basis. And again, only if there is some serious concern in the background. We do need everybody to be in safe situation. So when you relocate, where do you want to go? Those are things that we hear a lot of feedback on. Some of our options are other RHA owned and managed housing. So that could look like other public housing properties. You may want to stay in that program as long as you can in public housing. That's fine. We're happy to have you do that. However, we do want you to keep in the back of your mind that, this RAD process that we've applied for and we've been approved for, we've done that at all of our sites, and they may be following different timelines. But at some point, it is RHA's intention to get out of the public housing business and go strictly over to the voucher program. Again, all of it is affordable housing. But if you want to stay in public housing, there may be multiple moves associated in order for you to do that. You may end up kind of leapfrogging around different properties in order to stay with us as long as you can in that program. Now, with the voucher program, we do have several types of vouchers that are available. You may hear them called different things. HCV stands for Housing Choice Voucher. That is a voucher that is given to a tenant and it is assigned to that family. So you would take that voucher and you would go and do your own landlord search. So if you ever heard of somebody searching for a landlord or trying to find a landlord that takes the voucher, that means they have a housing choice voucher and they are going to the landlord with the voucher attached to that family. So we may be able to help make connections. Again, this would be something the relocation team could be tagged in on, helping make locations and landlords available to you, giving you a list of where other families have succeeded and using housing choice vouchers in our time with them during relocation so that you have a starting point. We also have something called project-based vouchers or PBV. Those are vouchers that are attached to the building and not necessarily the household. So We may say, hey, we've got this new property coming up at one of our partner sites. They have gone ahead and given us 25 or 30 guaranteed slots with vouchers, and the vouchers are already there. So now we're just lining up the tenant to go into where the voucher is. And in that case, you don't have to look for a landlord. Tenant protection voucher, and that is another type of voucher that HUD does give specifically for renovations and redevelopments and other things. So that may be a type of voucher that is available to you as well. And all of these vouchers that are available to you, we will let you choose from whatever options we have available at the time of relocation. So I don't have a crystal ball to look and tell you exactly a year from now which vouchers we will have available, but it could be any of these. And if we have all of them, we'll let you choose. Hey, I want to look for my own landlord, or you do want to be project based. And those will be individual conversations that the relocation team will have with each household just to gauge your interest and see what works best for you. Next slide. So this is just a program comparison chart similar to what I just went over. You can see we have 4 different categories here going up and down: public housing, housing choice voucher, project-based voucher, and the RAD PBVs. Those are other properties that RHA manages, but they've already gone through this process, so they're not really public housing, but we still own and manage those. So you can kind of look at the different categories down the left-hand side of your screen and look across and see what the considerations would be for each program. What would it mean for your security deposits? What would it mean for having to go look and find your own landlord? Are you going to be subject to Section 8 inspections? All of those things. These are just different considerations. There's no right or wrong answer as to what program interests you or what works for your household. But we do want you to have information and access and education to make these decisions. And if you look at the bottom of the screen, the very last column, all of these are affordable housing options. So please hear me when I say everything that we're offering and talking about today is in the best interest of keeping your household affordable long term. So these are all affordable, and we don't want anybody to have any anxiety or any panic that the things that we're talking about are going to make your household or your rent unaffordable to you. Next slide. So how can you get ready? There are a couple ways you can get ready now. I know we are still fairly far out on this process. Back to that slide, we had a timeline. It said mid-2027. So we're, a year out or so from that. But we want you to go ahead and be getting ready if you have the capability to do that. Ways that you can do that would be to make sure you're on time with your rent payments and that you have any lease violations or, again, compliance issues with your lease. Talk with your property manager. It is still an active lease agreement going on at Mayview. We are still your landlord. So, we need you to hold up your resident obligations, and we will hold up our landlord obligations to you. Sign up for any upcoming classes like Ready to Rent. We have a few of those going on right now. The next set of classes is going to start sometime later this summer after the 4th of July. But those are great classes that are offered by partners of ours at Triangle Family Services that talk about how to be a good renter, balancing budgets, setting aside money for rent, looking at your credit report, all sorts of things that may help you get ready and be in a good position when it is time to relocate. Make sure you know and have your personal identification documents, birth certificates, social security cards, photo IDs, all of those things. At some point during relocation, there is a high likelihood that we will ask to get updated copies of those. So just make sure you know where they are, especially if you're considering going out to the voucher program now. When you relocate, they will do what is called eligibility. They'll take you into that program. Right now, you're with public housing. So following HUD rules, we have to treat you like a new tenant. And that means we're going to have to get fresh copies of all of those documents. Just like if you were to come off a waiting list, we would have to do that to make sure that we're following HUD guidelines. We aren't going to ask for your updated income information at this time, because that is time sensitive and it does require it to be current within 120 days. And we're well past that being an active timeline right now. But no, at some point we will ask for those documents to get updated awards letters, pension letters, wages, pay stubs, things like that. That will be coming down the pipeline, but we are not there yet. Check and know your credit score. So it is very important outside of relocation, just as a general practice in your everyday life. Make sure you know what your credit is. I'm not telling you you have to have a certain credit score, but check your credit. Make sure, does it look accurate? A lot of times there are things that get on people's credits that isn't accurate. So is it actually your credit? Make sure you know that. And then if there's anything old out there, go and try to clean it up if you have the ability to do that. There are resources that can be made available to you to help with that, but it is going to be imperative that you have accurate information when you go to relocate. And especially if you're looking for applying with different landlords outside of RHA, that is going to be, a standard industry that they look at. Paying off older outstanding utility bills. I know at Mayview we do have you all setting up your own water, electric, and gas, which is great. Because at some of our other sites where they don't do that, we have had some tenants get into a spot of trouble where they had an old utility bill on their name from 10, 15 years ago that they forgot about. And then when they went to sign up with a different landlord, that came back into consideration. So just, take a look at those things. And we do have a resource down here, annualcreditreport.com. It is a free way to pull your credit. You can do it once a year for free. So it shouldn't cost you anything to check your credit. It's just a simple way to get ready for what will be coming a year or so from now. Next slide. All right, clean out old clutter and dispose of things you no longer want to keep. When you move, you're going to have to pack up all of your belongings. That means putting things in boxes, having boxes to put them in, and then getting them in your car and then transporting them. So the less items you have to do that with, the better. I am not suggesting that you get rid of anything you don't want to get rid of, but if you're like me and you have a whole lot of stuff shoved in the back of a closet that you've forgotten about and you haven't looked at in a very long time, it might be a good idea to do some spring cleaning and just take consideration of, is this something that you're going to want to move in the future? Set aside some savings to supplement what we will be providing for relocation costs. Now, we are bound by the Uniform Relocation Act and what we can provide payment for as far as these payments go. So there are certain categories. And if there's anything outside of the categories that we're allowed to supplement, then we can't necessarily pay you for them. So there may be some other categories. Just set aside a little bit of cushion in case there is something that is not covered by the act that you would like to have paid during this move. We may ask you to supplement your payments because we, again, are only authorized to make payments for certain categories based on legislation. Report any maintenance issues that you know. Bugs, roaches, pests. Do you have a sink that's leaking? Is there something else going on? Continue to let us know that. We are happy to fix it. We are happy to take a look at it, but we can't evaluate and fix what we don't know about. So please make sure you're reporting that information and calling in work orders. Also, be on the lookout for future correspondence. As we said earlier, we have a goal of over communicating. That means we may be sending you future emails, things to your Rent Cafe portal. You may be seeing flyers posted around the Mayview mailboxes. Just keep an eye out for future correspondence. This is an important category and an important topic, so we want to make sure that we are saturating that message out there. And we know everybody has different communications preferences, so we're going to try them all that we can to make sure that we are reaching people in the best way for them. Next slide. Key takeaways. Okay, so the key takeaways, the best things that we want you to walk away from this meeting is that we're going to continue to work with you as our residents, and we have several ways for you to contact us. We have an email address on the screen, mayviewinfo@rhanc.gov. That comes to a whole host of us on this call. So if you have questions and you're not sure what team to direct them to, send it to that email address. It's going to come to several people, and then we will make the connection. So if this is a a building question, we may send it to Sonia. If this is a redevelopment question, we may send it to Rachel. If it's relocation, it may come to me and my team. But you can reach out to us individually, and you can also reach out to us as a group. Again, RHA does not have any firm plans regarding Mayview. All of this is very introductory. We have a plan to make a plan. That's about as far as we are in right now. So if you hear people out there in your neighborhood saying, well, that I heard this and my neighbor told me that, please make sure you're coming back directly to RHA to get clarity on those things. We don't have firm plans. Anything that you may hear, if it's not coming from an RHA or a HUD source, it is likely to be a rumor or something off of the grapevine. So make sure that you're always bringing those questions back to us directly, and we would be happy to answer them. And then another key takeaway is that nobody's going to be without housing because of a conversion or renovation. Please, please, please hear me say that. Everybody will still have a house. Everybody will still have a roof over their head. It will still be affordable to you. It may look a little different depending on if you want to go with public housing or Section 8. It may look a little different if you want to be with the early movers that are doing voluntary relocation, or if you want to stay at Mayview. But everybody will have options to make. Everybody will have an affordable roof over their head, okay? You have a right to residency. Nothing in the RAD process is going to take that away from you. So with that being said, we will open the floor up for questions. I believe I did see one in the chat specific to trying to get in touch with Kiara. So I believe Sonia's team will take that and have Miss Kiara reach out to you. But if there's anything specific to the redevelopment or RAD process in general, we'd be happy to take those questions. You can either put them in the chat or you can come off of mute and ask over the call here today. No questions? And I'm also going to put my personal contact information in the chat as well, in case anybody wants to reach out to me directly or my team after this call. Would we be able to change bedroom sizes? That's a great question. So let me talk about that a little bit. In general, just so you know, the public housing program follows what they call the ACOP, the Admissions and Continued Occupancy Plan, and Section 8 program follows what they call the Administrative Plan or the Admin Plan. Both of those programs outline bedroom sizes slightly differently. So depending on which program you go to is going to drive a little bit of that conversation. What would your bedroom size look like? We will also look at what is your household size currently when we look at assigning you either a house with public housing under our program now or giving you a Section 8 voucher. Some of you may be what we call overhoused or underhoused. So maybe your household composition has changed from your move-in time. You've added new family members, or you've had family members who have left your household and still have the remaining members there. So we will look at and see how many people are in your household at the time that we're looking to relocate you, and what will that qualify you for under either the ACOP or the admin plan. So that can change your bedroom size. It could increase it, it could decrease it. I can't tell you specifically, there are some questions we would have to answer to give you a specific answer on that. But yes, we will look at what we call right sizing or giving you the occupancy standards for your program based on your household composition at the time of the relocation. Do you take into consideration age gaps between dependents? I'm assuming that means based on the bedroom size. And what we do is we look at, under both programs, we look at the number of people. We don't necessarily say gender or age affects the bedroom designations. We don't determine who sleeps where within a house. but we look at this is 4 people in the household, or this is 5 people in the household. We don't break it down further than that to say 1 daughter and 2 sons, or a mother and a child. We just say 2 people. So we don't look at that. I will say if there is any kind of special reasonable accommodations for your household that require somebody to have their own independent bedroom for a disability related reason, then that would be something we would want you to bring to us so that we can evaluate that under the reasonable accommodation process. Are there other questions? Well, we appreciate your time today. We know you have other places you could be, and you chose to be here with us, and that makes us very happy that you chose the time to do that. We'll have more of these meetings in the future, but please reach out to us between now and the next meeting if something comes to mind, or if you have a question you want to ask. You don't have to wait to the next meeting. We will always do our best to make staff available to help answer your questions or give you any feedback on what the process is looking like. And we thank you so much. And oh, and this will be recorded and put on our website. So
Yep.
if you know anybody who missed the call, or if you just want a refresher on the information, please make sure you check our website. That is where we keep resources to give you some guidance and feedback on what is going on specifically for your community at Mayview.
All right.